Hello, listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is the Awards Watch Podcast, episode 277. I'm the executive editor, Ryan McQuade, and joining me today is our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson,
Hello, good morning, salutations.
and our associate editor, Sophia Ciminello.
Hi, guys.
We're here. We're at the end. Final predictions episode for the 97th Academy Awards. A crazy season, probably the craziest season the three of us have been around. We've done this now. This is our third time doing a final predictions episode. And it's been crazy. And this past weekend didn't help. And none of these weekends have actually felt like they've helped. And there's so many races that still feel very open. And there's plenty paths open for people and films to capture even the big prize on the night. And so we're going to break down all the categories. We're going to give out our thoughts. We'll recap what happened over the last weekend and the weekend before at BAFTAs again as we are talking about these. So, guys, I'm just going to ask you real quick. How are you feeling about these predictions?
I feel
Certainly
amazing.
uncertain.
I'm going to get 23 out of 23 right.
Oh, cool. We'll just plant that flag right there.
Yep.
You're listening to it first, folks. This is the only place you're going to get 23 out of 23. No,
Easy peasy.
I actually think we're going to be we might be split. This, the last couple of years we've been pretty like, okay, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. A lot of closed races, and I don't know. I feel like this year we're going to have to talk ourselves in or out of a lot of things. So
The thing I think that's going to be kind of fun and cool is that because of how erratic things have been, and we all try and jump through some hoops of making the pieces fit together. I don't think there's going to be a lot of real bragging rights when it comes down to the winners, because it's not this isn't a math solution.
No.
It's not like a previous year. There's potential for just precedents to be set. So it's going to be just one of those things where Monday's going to be the best day of all of this, because we're going to be able to look back and then start putting it together, because what's happening now is not it's not conducive to easy predicting, which is great. That's actually the really fun part.
Yeah. Sophia?
Yeah, I think in the years past that we've covered together, and I mean, even separately, I can't really think of a year quite like this one. It just feels like its own unique thing, which, yeah, I like that about the no bragging rights. I mean, I'm sure some people will try, but I think this year more than ever, I'm not really leaning on math or statistics. I'm just kind of going with a general feeling that I have of what's in the air, who has done well so far, and where I see certain categories going.
Yeah, I think it'll be. I think Erik, you hit it right on the head. I mean, Monday is going to be the most fascinating day, probably in a very long time. Maybe the most fascinating day in terms of a post-Oscar outcome since Moonlight La La Land, probably, because that was for a controversy and the wildness of that. But this will be in terms of how we look at the Academy right now. Is this a one-off year? The sort of wildness and the fact that there hasn't felt like a consensus film to dominate speaks kind of to the year of 2024 films in a lot of ways too. That there isn't like a massive consensus around something like the last 2 years with Everything Everywhere All at Once and Oppenheimer, and that can feel really good for a prediction standpoint, and then that can also make you want to rip out your hair because people. I think we always say we like the idea of an open race, but I think when it comes down to it at this point, we like certainty. We like to go into an Oscar ceremony maybe not as nervous or as on the edge of our seat. I think that people want the idea of an open race, but when it comes down to it, I think they want certainty. And I don't think they're getting a lot of certainty this year outside of a couple of things, which could be really interesting and also just really bad for all of our hearts and minds and everything going into it. But we'll break down it all starting now. and go into our first category. And Erik, I'd like you to start us off by reading Best Documentary Short Film.
Okay, I just actually published all of my short predictions just a few moments ago.
Well, that's good. Also, throughout the week, while y'all listeners are out here and listening, Erik will have final prediction pieces that'll come out throughout the week leading up to the Oscar race on Sunday.
Fast as I can get everything out because
Correct. It's a mad dash to the finish.
It really, really is. All right, so documentary short. I'm going to read them in the order that I have them.
Okay.
For likelihood of winning.
Okay.
I Am Ready, Warden, Incident, The Only Girl in the Orchestra, Death by Numbers, and Instruments of a Beating Heart.
So with that logic, Instruments of a Beating Heart's going to win because you have it last. I don't know. Yeah, it just always feels like that with the shorts, right? Like we put it something last, and then
they all have titles that like you could see people that haven't seen any of them but still like to vote anyway, and they're like, this title sounds exactly like what it should be. It sounds very important. It sounds big. They all have that title.
Yeah, they do. So you can't use that March Madness style. I like the colors of that jersey logic, so therefore I'm going to vote for that. That's very much you in this category. I don't know. Like I feel like Death by Numbers is because it's. I always say this about the Oscar voters every year, and you guys know this. They're lazy when it comes down to these final votes. So first one sounds about right. Might just vote for it. I don't know. Sophia, where do you have in this category?
I actually have The Only Girl in the Orchestra here as my prediction because I do think there are a few reasons why. I think there are some good titles here, but this is the title that reminds me most of like the Queen of Basketball or one of those that aligns with a single subject matter, which they often like, one subject that we're focused on throughout the story. It is on Netflix and it is the lightest one of the bunch. So if these members are watching these in a collection or if, they want something that feels a little bit better, I think, when they're watching it than something that's like, I personally would vote for Incident without question. I think it's the strongest one of the group, having seen them all. But this just, to me, feels like that one that it feels serious and important enough, but it's something that goes down easy. It's one of my least favorites, actually, personally, which is also part of why I'm predicting it.
I was just going to say, which one's the worst one? And that's also going to win.
It's giving Maestro, it's giving Tar, but with a subject matter who clearly does not want to be filmed at all, which is why I couldn't connect with it. But that's my prediction.
Yeah, that was my pick for a while. And I think I had it in our predictions episode as well, too, for the nominations. I'm going to go Incident. I've heard a lot of people talk about that. I'm the person that waits until the last second to watch all these, so I will be seeing a lot of them this week. So don't hold and also I just am not in the place to want to watch a bunch of sad documentary shorts. But I'm going to go with Incident. I've heard glowing things about it from people, and I know it's all of these are hard to watch in their own way. I just feel like that one has the shortest title, therefore packs the most punch, and that's what I'm going to go with for now. So.
Yeah, I had it at number one, and I just swapped it out this morning for my finals. I don't know why.
You fool!
I know, because it won Cinema Eye Honors and International Documentary Association, so it's the only one that has any kind of real precursors behind it.
I feel like we should do a bet amongst the three of us for something.
I'd be very happy if it won.
Yeah, it probably
because it's going to come down to this: who had the better ones? These shorts. It always does. It's always those damn shorts. All right. So Erik had I Am Ready, Warden, and Sophia had The Only Girl in the Orchestra, and I had Incident. Okay.
Every
Sophia.
time I hear Only Girl in the Orchestra, though, all I think about is Rihanna.
Only girl in the world. Gosh. Like I'm the only girl in the orchestra.
It needed a little bit of that energy.
Yeah,
really.
It did.
All right. Best animated short film, Sophia.
We have Beautiful Men, In the Shadow of the Cypress, Magic Candies, Wander to Wonder, and Yuck.
Wait.
What a collection.
Wait, how do you say that? Yuck.
Yuck.
There you
Just
go.
like, what was it? What was the one with exclamation point last year that I hated?
Oh, God.
The
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
The Lennon one.
Oh,
Yeah.
the war
War is
is
over.
over. If you want it, you know. So, Sophia, which one are you selecting here?
I'm going with Wander to Wonder here just because it won the BAFTA. I think it has the most precursor love in general, and I don't really have a reason to bet against it. I think if I picked another option, it would actually be Yuck, just because it's lighthearted. I could see them liking that, but I'm gonna go with Wander to Wonder.
Erik?
Yeah, I'm also going Wander to Wonder. And then I have Beautiful Men as my number two.
Well, of course you
Or
have
the
beautiful.
Travis Kelce story, as I like to call it.
I was just gonna
Wow.
say with the title like that, of course Eric's gonna have it as his number two. Beautiful
Oh
Men.
my
That's
God.
his. That's the title of his autobiography. Yeah, I'm going Wonder to Wonder. That when it won the BAFTA, that was kind of made sense. So 3 for 3. That's interesting. Um, Erik, could you also do best live action short film too, please?
Yes, we have The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent, Anuja, I'm Not a Robot, The Last Ranger, and Alien.
The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent. That's probably a movie that my wife made about me. Um, totally. I'm just making the joke before everybody else does, so
Yeah, I was,
might
Hmm.
as well
yeah.
do it.
Hmm.
Well, you're not supposed to agree with that, guys. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it on the final predictions episode. So, Erik, you have The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent as your predict.
Yeah, I did read mine in order. Yeah, Anuja
Okay.
is also a Netflix title.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sophia.
I'm going with your last place pick, Erik, actually. I'm going with Alien or Alien, however you pronounce it. So the reason I'm going with this is because it's produced by Adam McKay, and it is also the most, I would say, topical of the
Yeah.
bunch. It
Yeah.
is also an English language short. It is pretty compact, tightly edited. It has a single story that I think a lot of people, with ICE and undocumented immigrants getting these green card interviews being these traps that ICE actually set, I think is a story that will hit home for a lot of voters. So I'm going with that one.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I thought about that. Uh, I thought about um, I thought about The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent as well.
Good
Um,
title.
yeah, that's a
Hmm.
really good title that just sticks
Hmm.
out to voters.
If
But
only.
but, but if they I do think though Sophia's right. I think that Alien, Alien, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it just sounds like the kind of thing that they go for. They go for like these pat on the back, also important pieces. I was thinking about what is that? The Two Perfect Strangers or Two
Yeah.
Bad
Oh,
Strangers a
Two
couple of
Distant
years, Two Distant
Strangers.
Strangers a couple
Hmm.
of years ago, and when I did catch up with these, and when I watched this, I was like, "Oh, it's got that." And then I saw Adam McKay. I was like, "Of course he's around here. Of course they like this."
It
So
reminded me a lot of how I felt about Red, White, and Blue last
yeah,
year, which didn't win, but that was up against Wes Anderson's short. And
yeah,
I feel
Hmm.
like if that wasn't there, that would have been the pick. It's so emotionally manipulative just on a political issue, and they like
Yeah.
that sometimes.
Yeah.
I think Anuja is my backup. That is one because it's
Hmm.
accessible on Netflix. They kind of made a last big push at the vote for it as well. So that would be my number two. But yeah, I'm gonna go the non Ridley Scott Alien here. If that's okay. Sorry. All right, let's get into the main categories. Y'all ready?
Ready.
All right. Best visual effects: Alien Romulus, Better Man, Dune Part Two, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and Wicked. Erik, what do you have in this?
I'm going with Dune Part Two, um, BAFTA winner, Critics' Choice winner.
Yeah.
But I mean, if there was ever maybe a time that an Apes movie could finally win, it might be today or to
Which
this
one?
this year. Kingdom, not
Well,
Better Man.
there's two monkey
I
movies in here.
There is, but I mean, really, yeah.
Technically, there's three.
Yes, Kingdom of Planet of the Apes is definitely a very close second because Dune across the board in its nominations is such a weak front runner everywhere.
Well, that's just the nature of this show today.
Yeah.
Weak frontrunners.
Yep.
And for everyone out there, Wicked is the third one with monkeys in it, the flying monkeys.
Mhm.
Sophia.
Yeah, I have Dune Part 2 as well. I think there's also a good correlation that we see sometimes, not necessarily with the winner of this category, but just between visual effects and production design. And Dune Part 2 also got a production design nomination. Wicked did too. But Dune, again, like Erik, you said, where it's been winning so far, I'm not going to make one of my risky picks in this category.
Yeah, I'm gonna play it safe as well. Doom Part Two. Um, yeah, I haven't seen really like the love for any of the other films to really jump in there. I think Dune, because it's the best, it's the thing that just separates it. It's the best picture nominee, and I think that it will do it. It's more of a visual action packed special effects laden film than something like Wicked, which will get honored in other categories. And those visual effects in Wicked are trash. So there's that. But I think that, I mean, it wasn't Way of Water. Like even when that movie didn't perform well, it won visual effects, if I'm not mistaken, too, a couple years ago. So it doesn't matter if you're the sequel or not.
Yeah.
It's the safe
Yeah.
pick. So we'll
Mhm.
go there. All right. Best sound. Sophia.
Best sound, we have A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. This is a little trickier, I think, than visual effects. You have this, to me, Dune Part 2 feels like a very soft frontrunner, and I'm going with it. It won BAFTA, and I don't feel like there's another musical that they're going to coalesce around. I think if we had sound editing and sound mixing, I would predict a split and would be really tempted to go with A Complete Unknown in mixing or with Wicked. But a lot of these films have guild support in individual places, MPSE, CAS, but Dune Part 2 getting the BAFTA win, that is our strongest precursor in sound. So that's where I'm going. But I don't
E-
feel great about it. I wouldn't be shocked if something else won, but that's where I am.
Erik.
Yeah, I'm going with Dune Part 2 as well. It won MPSE and CA, or BAFTA and Association of Motion Picture Sound. But that little surprise win at CES for A Complete Unknown definitely puts it in spoiler second place territory.
Yeah. It's the I'm going with Doom Part Two as well. Which again feels that doesn't feel good. But
I feel stronger about this than in visual effects, actually.
really, okay, all
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Um, I just think that you know, I think Sophia's right. Like, there's three musicals in here. Not to say that they're going to eat at each other's votes, but the idea of that, like, there's not been one of those that have arisen above the pack, and Dune has collectively just more wins. And it's a technical film, like you know what I mean. And so, so yeah, like I just feel like this is the places to award Dune, and then we'll move on for the night. You know,
One thing I will say that's interesting though is that it doesn't have an editing nomination, and that doesn't always matter. But if we do look at what does here, we have Amelia Perez and Wicked.
true.
So those would be Wicked might actually be spoiler territory for me
I was
instead of
thinking
A
about
Complete
Wicked.
Unknown,
I was thinking
Hmm.
about Wicked.
but
Yeah,
I'm still going with Dune.
I was thinking about Wicked a
Yeah,
lot this week.
that's fair.
For that, not that that movie has a lot of passion outside of its two categories throughout the season from the guilds or even BAFTA, that we think it's going to win here soon. But it's just it feels like yeah, that editing stat. When we've been talking about it though, these stats seem to probably be breaking left and right at this point. And it's such a weird year. But Wicked, if Wicked won, it would make sense then off that point as
Hmm.
well too. But okay, Best makeup and hairstyling. A Different Man, Amelia Perez, Nosferatu, The Substance, and Wicked. Kind of think this is slam dunk. I'm gonna go with The Substance and not look back. Erik?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
this is
Sophia?
a big, big win.
In agreement, The Substance.
All right. We can move on from there. Best costume design. I'm assuming we're picking Wicked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gold
Yeah.
Sweeper,
Yeah. BAFTA,
Erik?
CDG, Critics'
BAFTA.
Choice. It has everything.
Okay. Then Wicked it is.
Paul Tazwell, I think he's going to make some Oscar history and it'll be good for him.
Yeah. Good for him indeed. Um, so we'll move on from there. Production design. Wicked again.
Yeah. I
Wicked
mean,
again.
Okay.
again, it won all four guilds and precursors. So yeah, there's no reason to bet against it.
Oh,
It has the most production design. So
yes.
Hmm.
Yes. Okay. Would be a terrible win, but it's gonna
like,
win.
but the Brutalist, literally about
I
architecture, could not win a single production design
You know what though? People
award.
hate brutalism. It's so
yeah.
Yes, they
ugly.
do. They do.
They just can't get it. They don't get it.
No,
You know, they don't get it. That speaks more to them, I think, though.
that's their loss.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so too.
Erik,
Yeah.
best original song.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay. All
It's
right.
it's all downhill from here. Let's go, guys.
There's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
Because we just had the Guild of Music Supervisors do their wins late last night. There was like four guild awards last night.
Jesus.
Um,
Did you get
and
sleep?
no.
Okay.
And the only eligible Oscar film won. That's Like a Bird from Sing Sing. So it has a win among the nominees. Never Too Late has the HMMA win for documentary. El Mal has wins from Critics' Choice and Golden Globes. And then the Society of Composers and Lyricists went completely outside of the eventual Oscar nominees and gave it to Compress Repress. Great choice. So that throws things into a little bit of chaos because I think most of us have been kind of defaulting El Mal from Amelia Perez as the winner, and it makes sense. But I also think too that the the aftermath of the Carla Sofia Gascon controversy, where is it going to hit? Or is Amelia Perez just going to get the three things that it was already kind of going to get even before the controversy started, which was international feature film, supporting actress, and song? I mean, that was kind of like where everybody was. I was certainly there. But I think things feel different now that there is an openness to go outside of what felt like a pretty narrow box to kind of be in. And when they played Diane Warren's song during the SAG Awards, it would have been great had it been, during Oscar voting. That would have been kind of great. I don't know. Something kind of changed in me, not in a wicked way.
Something is
Sounds
not
like
the same.
yeah.
Something is not the same. And unlimited breadsticks. Uh, and I switched to the journey like 2 weeks ago in my last Frontrunner Friday and put it
No,
at
oh, we know.
number one.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, well, we know.
We know.
Diane knows.
She knows.
Um,
Shout out Diane.
and it also won the NAACP award for song. I think something's happening. I think it can happen. Um, it's probably too, if you listen to it, like the least offensive of the the more recent songs like this, the stand up, rise up and stand, and I'll stand with you and I'll rise with you kind of songs. And I think that she can win.
So you're going with Diane
I
Warren.
think I'm going to go with it. It's probably wrong. It will probably be El Mal, but I think it can happen.
Okay. I like your train of thought.
It doesn't
Sophia.
make sense because this song is completely tied to Zoe Saldana.
Yeah.
Completely.
Oh, I
And
know.
and she's winning. So it doesn't make sense to pick the journey, but I don't care. I'm having some fun this year.
To your point, and then get to you, Sophia. To your
Mhm.
point, this is the first time that, and I read this last night, and I was kind of, it made sense. The Oscar voting was the first time we really had a full on account of timing in which the Carla Sofia Gascon tweets and controversy played into a voting cycle, because it was towards in the middle of SAG and BAFTA, and obviously Critics' Choice and Golden Globe. They had already done their voting, and
Hmm.
the PGA and the DGA and all that other stuff. Like, it was like towards the that started right at the tail end. This was full on. We had all the facts leading up to the Oscar voting and the aftermath and the 90 apologies and so on and so forth and so forth. And the reception, as you can tell from these telecasts, I don't know, we all watched SAG Awards last night. It has seemed to be very tempered to, like, on pins and needles anytime Amelia Perez has been mentioned. When Zoe Saldana and Selena Gomez went up there to introduce their ensemble, one, somebody was missing from up there, right? And two, it just didn't seem to have the enthusiasm that all the other films had in the room. And I think a lot of that has to do with people just separating themselves from the film. So does that,
Hmm.
to your point, Erik, play into the three wins it was walking in with on the night? Sophia, what do you think?
I wish I was brave enough to pull the trigger because I would vote for Diane Warren here. I think she actually should win, and I think she has the best song in the category, and it's her best one in
Hmm.
years.
Yep.
But I'm just going to stick with El Mal. I think when you have two songs from a single movie in the category, usually one of them wins. I know there are some examples where that didn't happen. I think that didn't happen for Dreamgirls, which I think had a few nominated. But
Yeah, three.
yeah, yeah, I'm gonna go with El Mal, just also because it's tied to Zoe and she's a sweeper.
By the way, Brave Enough and Pull the Trigger will be the next two song that Diane Warren
Pull the
writes.
trigger, yeah,
Pull
that's
the
gonna be
trigger
in some
from,
sort of documentary.
yeah, some,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, I know it's not the popular choice. I know El Mal makes the most sense, and I talked myself into exactly why, and you mentioned it as well. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe
guys, so
maybe her house burning down really did have some impact.
I mean, I do think that she did the whole medley of her 16 songs thing, and she's been all over the carpets, and she obviously knows how to campaign. Diane Warren's sort of a kind of a legend when it comes to that. Every season I see her at Middleburg, and she's awesome and very nice. And uh, you just kind of hope one year she'd get over. And I was saying this a couple weeks back, that it's such a wild year, and given everything with Amelia Perez and what's happened with there, it's totally possible that if she gets in, finally people acknowledge it. It's not a bad song. It's a terrible movie, but it's not a bad song. Um,
Oh, the
if you,
movie's worse than Amelia Perez. So
oh yeah,
if you're making any judgment calls, 6 888 is horrible.
it's bad. But then, the Like a Bird from Sing Sing, I don't think that that's a realistic thing, even though, yeah, it just won an award last night. I don't see that happening. I've had this weird feeling about Elton John and Brandy Carlisle for Never Too Late. There's no reason to award them, considering the fact that Elton and Bernie just won like 5 years ago for Rocket Man. But Brandy Carlisle's played like the Kennedy Center, like back when the Kennedy Center used to matter. And she was at the SNL concert, and Elton was and her went on Colbert and did press for this, and have really and they have an album coming out together.
I'd
That
love Brandy Carlisle to have an Oscar.
Yeah,
Me
I mean,
too.
like, I see their campaign, and acknowledge it, that it is that they are pushing at the right time. Did they do events like the Amelia Perez people did, where they were literally singing the songs and stuff like that? I don't think they did.
Yeah, they did.
Or did they? Oh, well,
Hmm.
then in that case, that makes it even stronger of a case. And obviously, Elton John's got his party and he's well tied to the Academy. I mean, for Christ's sakes, I think he has Chaperone playing at his Oscar party this year, for Christ's sake. But I just think it's going to go to El Mal. And I think that I'm just going safe there. But I actually, no offense to Diane, I think Never Too Late is the spoiler in this, just because we also just see them go for star fuckery a lot in this category over the last couple of years. And, Elton John's coming off of his last tour and he's like, I can't see out of one eye and I've got health scares. And Brandon Carlisle's got I think, a fucking awesome. And it would, yeah, it just would make sense if something was going to upset. Maybe it's that. And then there's maybe a little bit of like Netflix eating themselves with having two songs from the same film and Diane Warren and not being able to figure out what they want to do here in the voting period. And because it clearly didn't look like they wanted to get away from Amelia Perez for the things that they wanted to win, but they didn't like go full force with Diane towards the finish line. So I'm just going to be safe and go El Mal. But I would love if Diane Warren finally won an Oscar, because then I think she could rest and we can stop hearing these songs. But I will say, shame on the Academy for not playing these songs. I know that they're not the best group, but they're a chance to highlight these nominees, these winners, and to see the announced medley of artists that it has been confirmed that Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, who don't have an original song for a movie, like it's just basically for television purposes. It feels very much like a couple of years ago with the
Bruno.
well, not just the Bruno, but I would even say to the extent of when they didn't want to put some of the technical categories up at the Oscars in 2021, and they did it like the telecast beforehand and didn't air all the winners. I feel like it's disrespectful in a lot of ways too, and adds unnecessary runtime to a show they want to keep at 3 hours. So, two El Malls and The Journey, which Erik is right. They played that at SAG in the In Memoriam, and I'm just like, oh shit. There you go.
It's a good song too.
It's a good song. It was a very good song.
It's really inoffensive, which says a lot for this era of those kinds of songs.
Yeah. Sophia, best original score, please.
For best original score, we have The Brutalist, Conclave, Amelia Perez, Wicked, and The Wild Robot. I am going with The Brutalist here. It won its category at the Society of Composers and Lyricists, and it won the BAFTA. Other places, Challengers has been winning, and that's not here. So I'm going with The Brutalist, but I will also say that I'm going to start airing my concern now that I'm worried that The Brutalist could be Elvis 2.0 and win nothing, because it has literally no support from American guilds. Like, it won this category because it had no competition, but elsewhere, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what my spoiler would be. I think it would be like maybe Conclave, just because of the success of that movie overall. The Wild Robot has also been performing well, but I'm gonna stick with The Brutalist because I think it's the best score in the category, and I'm banking on the BAFTA.
Erik.
Yeah, I'm sticking with The Brutalist as well, but very cautiously, because even though Conclave has not won anything, it's been nominated everywhere, and he's already won. He's a recent winner, and it has a very similar, vibe that they obviously liked once.
Wait, do that
It's
one
a
more time.
vibe.
Do that one more
No,
time, please.
I'm not going to do that
Listeners,
again.
rewind that. Just kind of
No.
listen to that on a loop.
It
Somebody
would
sent
be
us that
it
audio.
would be a really terrible win, but it's absolutely possible.
I'm going with The Brutalist. I think Conclave is the spoiler.
Yeah.
it's the one that everyone thinks is good. Conclave, and I still think it's a bad score. Gave me a headache at Telluride. And I will never forgive Volker Bertelmann, even though he will be back probably next year because Edward Berger has another film next year or this year, I mean. So just look forward to that. And I mean, it would be on Ludwig Göransson, the sort of afterglow win, but Göransson had wins on the season. And to Sophia's point, it just would have been more interesting if you would have put Reznor and Ross in here. And that would have been the real battle between The Brutalist and Reznor and Ross, the two best scores of the year. I think Chris Bauer's work on The Wild Robot is incredible, truly delivering some of the best work of his career. And I don't think Emilia Perez or Wicked are going to win this category. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't even think Wicked should be nominated in this category, and that's all the people that like Dune Part 2. So I think it's The Brutalist. I do think that this movie is far more acclaimed and loved than a movie like Elvis, which was really banking on the performance of throughout the season in terms of critical wins, and it still had strong nomination showings at guilds, and the the BAFTAs really did go for it, and it is a movie that they really do like, and I don't think it will be blanked on Oscar night. That's not the film that could be blanked. So
I hope you're right. I'm just saying, I'm just voicing my fear because, like, for Elvis, I remember it won ASC, and like we were thinking it could win production design and costume design and makeup and
Yep.
Austin and all these things, and it did well at the BAFTAs and in the guilds. And when my favorite movie has
yep.
weaknesses, my new goal is to not be too hopeful and to try to see it as straight in the most straightforward way as possible. We'll see how that goes, but
What
I'm
do I
still
always tell you?
predicting it.
Don't pick your favorites. It could hurt sometimes, right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
yeah.
so, but
Kill your darlings.
exactly.
Hmm.
Well, these two categories it's not going to be easy, I think. Best film editing.
This is the
Honor,
one.
Honora.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Hang on. We'll put that one to the side just for a second. Let's do best cinematography, actually. Best cinematography: The Brutalist, Doom Part 2, Emilia Perez, Maria, and Nosferatu. Um, this is this one's hard too, I think. This
I
is close.
I'm not sure it's that difficult. Yes, we have
Mm-hmm.
four precursors that went to three different films, and
That's wild.
last night threw us the biggest curve of them all
Hell yeah.
when Maria won ASC. Absolutely deserved, incredible win.
Yes.
Just stunning. Ed Lockman's fifth nomination with them,
Hmm.
fourth in theatrical. He's a Lifetime Achievement winner from them. So this was a big coronation kind of moment. Uh, and, I hope it was, they gave it to him for the right reasons because it is the best looking of all these films and not really, maybe this is our last chance to do it. That being said, The Brutalist with BAFTA and British Society of Cinematographers just sort of feels um, a little too not easy, but the path is there. The
Yeah.
path is there. And even though Courbet and his directorial vision of using VistaVision has not panned out as well as I think a lot of us thought it would, this is it. This is the VistaVision, and this is the place to reward it.
Yeah. Sophia?
I'm also going with The Brutalist here. I'm happy that Ed Lockman won something. I think that movie's pretty stunning. And I think his win really can be attributed to, like, yes, the quality of that work, but also within a guild. Sometimes they do just go for their titans and their favorites. And, I think it'd be a little too risky, though, to pick him because that movie does not have any other nominations. And for me, when I'm predicting cinematography, I want to look for, okay, what has the best picture nomination. Nosferatu doesn't have that. It just having CCA is a weak case for me. I think you have to just look at ASC, BSC, and BAFTA. And The Brutalist having two of the three is really strong. And I'm going back to when I don't like gloating, but I will gloat this time, when I correctly predicted that Mank would win the Oscar over Nomadland. And a reason why I did that was because it was so stylish, but it had the ASC and the BSC that year, both guild representation. So, following similar train of thought, 2 out of 3 here, going with The Brutalist.
Yeah. I mean, Greg Fraser is not going to win this, so Sophia will be happy there.
I don't,
Um,
yeah, we can't
yeah,
have that happen.
can't have
No
that
more
happen.
for Greg Fraser. No.
And I don't think, and Amelia's not going to win this. This is again another one of those places where it's just not going to happen. And I think the reason why The Brutalist will win is in large part because it's a Best Picture nominee. I think also it's the international vote being strong for the film, from Globes and international critics there to then the BAFTA, I think is huge for it. Jaron Blansky, if Nosferatu maybe had some more nominations or was just squeaked into the 10, maybe have a conversation about that. Yeah, Maria being the lone nominee. This isn't a Roger Deakins situation because that was a part of 1917, and there
Yeah.
was an overwhelming. He had already won one for Blade Runner 2049, which he had sort of swept throughout the season, and then there was a coronation again for that film because it was like, look at this technical achievement. Ed Lockman is a legend. I had the pleasure of talking with him earlier this year, and being able to put a nice big profile piece. Not a lot of people were able to do that this year, but I was, and I'm so grateful for him to be able to win an award like this. So, but that being said, I think that it will be The Brutalist and Lowell Crowley, Mr. LOL himself, will go up there and win Best Cinematography for The Brutalist. Okay, Best Film Editing. Now we can get to that one. Erik, could you do Best Film Editing, please?
Okay, we have Anora, Conclave, Amelia Perez, The Brutalist, and Wicked. And we know that the Ace Eddie is not going to be until after the Oscars, like a full 2 weeks after the Oscars. So they will not be providing us with any assistance
Thanks.
in terms of precursor land, because Critics' Choice went with Challengers, not nominated here. So the only one we have is Conclave's BAFTA win. And I don't I don't know what to do. Uh, I think obviously Conclave is having I don't want to even call it a surge properly because it's such a sputtering surge uh, at BAFTA and
What a
then
wonderful
SAG
word to
and
use. Yes.
SAG last
It's like
night.
that score.
Yeah, it's such it's not a meaningful one, but obviously pulling out a top win at the end after just flopping is, it's a choice, sure. So I feel it's between Anora and Conclave because I think that's what we're obviously when we get to the end, we're looking at as the final two films here is kind of where we're at. Um, is there a weird sneaky chance for Wicked? Maybe. I think I might have it in third place, but I guess officially, oh God. Oh, um, I think I'm going to lean Honora, but I don't feel very confident.
That's the name of the game today, folks, is I'm going to lean somewhere and not feel confident about it at all. Sophia.
I'm gonna go with Conclave. This is a pure instinct thing. Like when I saw this movie back at Telluride, because our brains are so warped with awards, everything, I thought, oh, editing. I also thought sound when I saw it because I thought the sound was, so jarring and over the top.
I'm shocked that it's not sound nominated.
I know, seriously. But I think, having the BAFTA being the only thing we can go off of and just the strength of the movie, we know people like it. We know people like Anora too, but that editing to me feels less showy in a way than Conclave. I think Wicked actually has some really showy editing, so that might be my spoiler because in the same way that sound is, I think if they get caught up in Wicked love below the line, we could see that here, but I'm not going to go with that one. I'm just going to stick with Conclave.
Oh man, this is tough. I think I mean a while back before the controversies, I actually would have thought about Amelia because that's such
That's
flashy
also showy editing,
editing,
yeah.
very
Hmm.
very flashy. Um, I don't think Wicked or Amelia are going to show up here. I think The Brutalist was lucky to get in here, but that's a sign of strength for the film. And it's a very different style of editing that usually doesn't win. Um, yeah, I mean, it comes down to Honora or Conclave. I don't think that either one of these wins are indicative, though, of what maybe I select here in a little bit. But right now we have a BAFTA winner, and that's all. We don't have Ace, which really sucks because I could have seen the world where we were sitting here with Ace, where Honora wins that, and we have a BAFTA, and we've been doing what we've been are going to talk about here in a little bit, which is the guilds going for Honora for the most part, and BAFTA going for Conclave. And where does that ultimately lead for this? I'm with Sophia. I think I'm going to be cautious and pick Conclave. And also, I just think that too, like, I know that everybody wants to just say, well, Sean Baker is going to win four, and that's going to happen. That doesn't usually ever happen. Like, you know what I mean? That's why it's so rare for even the nominations, let alone then it be a tally for somebody to win four on the night. So I think that it'll go to Conclave. Sophia, did you have something?
Oh, I was just thinking, I mean, I know we're talking about Ace, but I don't actually know if it would clear anything up for us, really. Just because of the split, like the genre split, I think we'd
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
be stuck here with Anora or Conclave still, kind
Hmm.
of just figuring out which movie is stronger across the board and in this category. So I feel like I know we wish we had it, but also I feel like we'd still be stuck.
It's good
Yeah.
to have data, though, I think.
For sure.
And but yeah, I do think Honora is a bit of the flashier editing, but Conclave has the BAFTA win. And and it's not that I don't think Conclave doesn't have flash editing. I just think that the second third, or even the first third of Honora is so chaotic and wild and speaks
You
to
have a
the
good
tone of that
mix
film.
of
Yes,
style too. Yeah.
exactly. So I don't know. I think it could be that. I mean, they don't put names on the ballot for this. Otherwise, I think that if Sean Baker's name was on there, that might help. But in any case, I think that I'm going to go with Conclave. But I mean, I could switch here in a day to Nora. I don't know. I'm kind of going back and forth on it. I'm trying to figure it out.
I might,
I know you might, right?
we're talking, but not until I publish things on the site
Yeah.
Is
is
it
it
final?
real.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it's real. We're published. Well, technically, we're publishing this episode on the site, so technically, it's real.
technically,
Technically, it is. All right, Eric,
yeah.
animated feature film.
Okay. We have Flow, Inside Out, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, The Wild Robot, and Memoir of a Snail. Oh, I wish this wasn't as hard as it feels like it is, because I want Flow to win. It certainly has a path to win. Um, but I do think that The Wild Robot is just the slightly stronger film. more nominations, box office. Just it's an original film in the sense that it's not a part of a trilogy. It isn't the Spider-Verse thing where they didn't want to vote for that because there was another coming and
Well, and it
wanted
was up.
to vote for Boy and the Heron.
Well, it was up against a legend too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And there isn't really any of that here so much. Wallace and Gromit's win at BAFTA over both was
Typical.
certainly a
So British.
choice.
So British.
It was so silly because they have that children's and family film category now, and that's it won there as well, and that's kind of really where it should have just
Yeah,
stayed. It's a cute
exactly.
film. It's really, really good, but it's
Hmm.
not on the level that Flo and Wild Robot are.
My guy
So,
Feathers McGraw. Yeah.
but
He
yeah,
stole the BAFTA.
Yeah, he did.
Just like the
he,
jewel.
he
Yeah.
literally did. But I do think it's going to be really close. Both Robot and Flo have their top Annie wins. Um, Flo has the Globe. Robot has Critics' Choice. Flo winning the Spirit Award for International Film, though, this weekend was a shock. Um, and I'm not putting too much, on that, but it was a nice surprise. But I'm gonna go with Wild Robot, but I do think it's pretty close.
Wild Robot also has PGA. I don't know if you mentioned that or not. Which is
Oh, that's right. I gotta add that.
yeah. So that's a big feather in its cap. Feathers in its cap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We
Um,
we got it.
did you? You want me to say it again?
Yeah.
Sophia.
I'm going with the one with the most feathers in its cap, the wild robot, just because I think to predict Flow, I would have needed to see it win at BAFTA, and I was kind of hoping it would win at BAFTA so we could have more of a showdown here. I love
Yep.
both films so much,
Yeah.
but I have to give the edge to the Wild Robot. It also getting that surprise sound nomination speaks to its strength, I think, too.
Yeah. I
Yep.
think would BAFTA be dog people since they went with Wallace and Gromit.
Oh,
Was that
we
kind
can't
of
trust them then.
can't trust that then, right? That's kind of
Yeah,
just I'm
that's
just pointing that out.
mhm.
That's a little problematic.
We're cat
That
people
is
here.
yeah.
Well, I both. I
We
have
are
both.
not, but
I have both.
Eric and I are cat
I
people.
get to
Yeah.
swim in the gray of that pond. I'm going Wild Robot. When I won PGA, I've always felt like this thing's going to win. No offense to Flo, which is I finally caught up with. Very very good film, but yeah, it just kind of feels like if it's not a sequel, usually the bigger studios usually tend to win these categories. It has nominations in other categories and other tech categories. It was, I mean, the sound nomination, I think was like, wow, okay. Like they did like this movie. I was surprised it didn't get into song, but you know, uh, it seems like every movie missed something this year. And then of course the score. So, just think it's probably close. Like Eric said, it's close, but I don't think it's like really close. I think that, it's like Wild Robot's got this pretty much in the bag walking in. But if Flo won, or even Wallace and Gromit, I'd be really happy with that. Just anything to stop Inside Out 2. That would be great. Thank you.
That's
So
that's not happening.
good. Fucking hate those movies. Um, Sophia, best documentary feature. Wait, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, for documentary feature, we have Black Box Diaries, No Other Land, Porcelain War, soundtrack to A Coup d'etat, and Sugarcane. This is where
Here we
I'm
go.
taking a bit of a swing, and I'm going with Porcelain War. I want to predict No Other Land. I think that No Other Land is one of the best films on this list that we'll go through today, top to bottom. But I just don't trust the membership at large to vote for this film when we think about their reaction to Jonathan Glazer's speech at the Oscars last year, when we think about the fact that this film has no US distribution, and I don't know how many people have seen this movie. That's the other piece of it. too. I mean, you have to make an effort, I think, to watch this. And I think it's a great statement to vote for this film. And I hope that there is passionate support for it. And I hope that I'm wrong in my prediction. But it not winning the BAFTA, now that didn't go to Porcelain War, that went to Superman. But Porcelain War has been the one I think that's just been kind of lurking in other places that gives me pause. So it won, I think, Audience Choice at the Cinema Eye Honors. It won DGA. It was nominated at PGA. And I believe it was the only one of these Oscar nominees to be nominated at PGA. That makes me think if they want to vote for something that feels important and that's about an issue that I'm sorry to say is a bit more palatable for them. I don't agree with that, but I could see them going this way for Porcelain War. So that's what I'm going to predict.
Yeah. Erik?
Yeah, I am also leaning Porcelain War for the exact same reasons. It's it can still cover war trauma as a subject matter in a way that I guess doesn't allow them to have to be in conflict with what anything Palestine, Israel is right now. And Porcelain War's fine. It's cute and kind of sweet, and it's screened a lot, and they keep bringing the little porcelain dolls around like the way that they do with Memoir of a Snail and Wallace and Gromit. And so it's sort of there's almost like a weird infantilization of it that makes it palatable and accessible, like you mentioned. So I feel like that is a more likely winner. And yeah, that's cynicism really kind of leeching its way in to thinking that.
Ooh. Let's call it 3 for 3. I have Porcelain War as well. I even probably think soundtrack to a coup d'etat has a better chance than no other land at this point.
Fucking great movie.
It's a great
I
movie.
love that one. Yeah.
And it's I just think that everything Sophia said, I know that this, I mean, it sounds very cynical, but the fact that in between the nominations and the voting, it's a perfect time for somebody to pick it up. Nobody did. It hasn't won really any Guild or BAFTA support. Even Critics' Choice didn't even touch it with a 10-foot pole, which is shame on them for not doing that.
That was definitely an access issue because that voting is so early, but that was an access issue.
Yes and no. And also too, like it won the Indie Spirit this weekend. Okay, cool. Indie Spirits don't really mean anything, like they don't. They're just kind of nice to add to the stat line, but really that's all that is. I just think back to last year, the way that the trades and members of the Academy, the written letters, the Zionist attitude towards a speech about what Jane Fonda talked about at the SAG Awards, empathy for people, was truly disgusting. And so a movie that is very important and very moving and the best documentary of the year, period. For it to be nominated is great. For it to win would be even grander. The speech would be incredible, but they also haven't felt like they wanted to embrace it. It feels like a chance for them to do something else. Porcelain War is fine. It will not age well if it is a winner against no other land. But I'm just going with it because it has somewhat of support from the guilds. I hope that I hope the inverse happens where people haven't seen it, But we've heard this before in years past with movies like I always think back to 12 Years a Slave, where there was that anonymous ballot person that went, I am not watching that movie. I don't care, but I'm voting for it. And I wonder if that will happen with No Other Land, where people do not see it, didn't have a chance to see it, but because it's been talked about, because it's been in there in the news and everything, because it is a timely matter, it wins. Like that's the I think really the only way it does win is it's a win of an act of defiance, not because and so but I usually tend to believe that they are going to go more safe than they are to do cool things or the right thing.
I
So
think it can still win. I
I think
think
it
No
still
Wonderland can
could,
still definitely win.
but it just I needed to see it win something or give it a chance at being in theaters or whatever. And just the industry has said we are not going to touch that right now with a 10-foot pole. And
Well,
so
Ryan, I think your reasoning is right. Like that's if this wins, I will think that it's because people were just like caught up in the excitement and the importance of what this movie is saying and how people are talking about it.
yeah,
And it won't even be that they're watching it necessarily.
it's a political statement also against the current administration and their thoughts on what they want to do in Gaza as well, going forward. So, and that news started coming out during the vote. So I don't know. It also could just be like, we'll go with something else on here that sounds like a better name. And
Hmm.
soundtrack to a coup d'etat sounds like a really good name for a movie. I mean,
It's an amazing title.
it really is.
It
And it's a
is
great movie
it
too.
is so good. I would probably pick soundtrack of this
That's
five.
one that I wish I would have seen at a film festival or
Yeah.
earlier in the
It's
year on the big screen and not at
extraordinary.
home.
I really got to
Yeah.
do a
Yeah.
better job next year at these film festivals to go to some documentaries because when I've seen documentaries at festivals, man, they've really been the highlights of the festivals, from what I remember. Okay, we're all going Porcelain War.
I'm I
So
mean,
what a
yes,
string
for on the
for
For
now.
podcast,
now.
yes.
For
On the
now,
podcast, yes, but
I can change it
I might
back.
switch to No
Hmm.
Other
I
Land. So
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
I don't know. As of now, that's where we stand. All right, best international feature: Amelia Perez, not Perez, Perez. Flo, the girl with the needle. I'm still here in the seat of the sacred fig. All right, Eric.
Ugh.
This is the it comes down to do you think the vote affected it Amelia Perez in this category?
Well, if I'm willing
I was going to say,
to say that I think that Amelia Perez can lose song, I have to be willing to say that it can lose international feature film as well.
and if it loses it, it's losing too.
Well, I'm still here,
Yeah,
obviously.
I don't
Um,
know. You could go Flo.
no, no, no. And that also presents the scenario that with its three nominations, this is the best place to be able to reward the film. Um,
Talk about it.
but that's only, we have 10,000 people that can vote, If a few people think that, it doesn't really mean anything. So I,
Of 10,000 people in a room, if
if,
they
yeah,
if just a couple vote for
5,001 vote for
exactly.
Brazil.
There you go.
Um, but and this could just be all meaningless. And Amelia just wins the three that it was always going to win. And we're just kind of getting tied up with how much the controversy impacted or did not. Did you read what Isabella Rossellini said the other day?
Oh, I sure did.
Oh boy.
Wait, I didn't see this. What
She
happened?
voted for Carla.
She voted for Carla in Best Actress because I
She
read it
said
and then
something like,
I stopped reading
I was
about it.
asked to vote for the performance.
Hmm.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, and
That's something.
it's a very European thing to do. And it's
Hmm.
why
Yep.
Emilia Perez swept the European Film Awards. They just don't give a fuck. So, oh my God. Again, I'll probably just backtrack, but I'm going to go Amelia Perez, and then I'm Still Here. That's the spoiler.
Very good. Sophia.
So I didn't pull the trigger in song, but I'm gonna pull the trigger here, and I'm gonna go with I'm Still Here. I know that it doesn't make total sense to go against Amelia Perez here, but I mean, especially like it won the BAFTA. So that was our first sign where it's like, do people really care? Probably not. And I could go back on this and be wrong, but I'm Still Here getting a Best Picture nomination and Fernanda Torres in. It has some pretty significant support. And Amelia Perez obviously does too. It's the nomination leader. But I think if we see love for that film somewhere, I'm Still Here, it's here in international feature. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna guess that it's gonna eke it out and it's gonna be one of those surprising happy things that happens, but I could go back on it and change it. I'm very wishy-washy here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's tough. This is very tough because I mean everything Sophia said is absolutely correct. The passion for I'm Still Here was large and loud enough to get it those three nominations. Pretty significant nominations, if I do say so. Um, and obviously, it's not going to win picture. We'll talk about Fernanda here in just a couple of moments. I'm going to play it safe and go with Amelia Perez because I do think, though, that they did have a chance at BAFTA to give I'm Still Here up against it, and other places as well too. Now, I don't believe the full controversy had happened enough during the vote at BAFTA, enough for that to change. But I mean, I don't see much of a. I see Amelia Perez's momentum stalled for it picking up wins outside of the three. The three felt like kind of foregone conclusions,
Mhm.
and I think that it will win the three. People be mad all they want. It's just there's bad winners every year. Like, calm down. Um, but I just think that the safe bet is to go with that. I have no support outside of or fact or anything outside of the fact that like, oh, it got into picture. That means something. It does. It means it got into picture. Good for it. There wasn't a 10th film or ninth film, two other films to get it out. And it had the passion to get in there. But then when you open it up to the Academy, does the Academy, do all the voters see that film and think I'm going to vote over Amelia Perez, which has overwhelmingly a massive support of international voters? I just don't see that as of right now. Now, would I personally like to see I'm Still Here win over Amelia Perez? You're damn right. You know what I mean? That is a movie like for me, I would personally like to see. I think it's a very timely film. I think it's a very good film. And Amelia Perez is what it is. But um, I and the last thing I would rather have is to see Jacques Audiard speak twice on one night at the Oscars. Okay. Um, but I just think it's going to happen at this point, and I'd like to be proven wrong. I like some surprises, and I think that this won't be the one. Um, I feel like they're gonna weirdly go safe in a lot of places. So, um,
The thing I'm thinking about is that the Phase 2 campaign has obviously, from Sony Pictures Classics, been incredible. Absolutely, just
oh yeah,
10 out of 10, no notes. But it's been so clearly focused on Torres
yes,
and less the film.
mm-hmm.
So I think that's what's kind of keeping me just this shy of feeling it will win here, and that the campaign is really about positioning Torres in a better spot.
It's close,
Yeah.
but I think that you're right, Eric. I think that
Hmm.
that is a factor that plays into this as well. Like, um, I think that I mean, Sony Pictures Classic does a great job at their campaigns. They've done a wonderful job to even get this in there is incredible. Into the Picture 10 is even wilder. But yeah, beyond that, I don't know if they've campaigned the film rather than the performance. So, but we shall see. Kudos to Sophia if she gets that right.
We'll see if I stick with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Adapted screenplay. We're in the top 8 now. Erik.
All right.
I kind of feel like we can just actually skip over this if we want to.
Yeah, this ended up being a lot easier, not very competitive. Conclave has BAFTA Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, and the Scripter. Nickel Boys has Writers Guild because Conclave wasn't there. Conclave is winning.
Yep, Conclave will win this Oscar. Sophia?
Conclave's winning the Oscar. Should be Nickel Boys.
Yes. Should be a couple other films that weren't even nominated. Queer being one of them.
Yeah. Nickel Boys is just like outright the greatest adaptation to me in film this year.
Yeah,
And I'm happy it's here and that it won the WGA. But yeah, it's Conclave.
Best original screenplay, Sophia.
Here we have Anora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, September 5, and The Substance.
All right.
Oh, so A Real Pain winning BAFTA really threw me for a loop. But I'm going with Anora here. And I'll explain why I think a little bit more when I get to some of the other categories and why I'm doing that and what I see Anora's night looking like. But I think that Anora winning PGA, DGA, WGA, and I know screenplay has actually been really tough for it all year, which I thought was kind of odd. This felt like something Sean Baker could walk away with at the beginning of the season pretty easily, and even the sole representation for the film at one point. But I'm going with the movie that I think is stronger and that clearly has American Guild support and international support overall. But I think A Real Pain could absolutely happen.
And is the Best Picture nominee.
And is the Best Picture nominee, yes.
Yeah. Erik Anderson.
This is tough. It's
Do you want me to go?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, for a while, I thought that The Substance was actually going to win this category. I did, and then A Real Pain started winning a bunch, and then when A Real Pain didn't get into picture, I started thinking, okay, well then this is going to be Anora, and then the BAFTA happened, and it went to A Real Pain, and even at something like Indie Spirits, A Real Pain won. But WGA, they went up against each other. Like, yeah, The Substance wasn't there, but it was A Real Pain and Anora. And Anora won that. So that was like that's not one of those where you're like, well, you can't say that A Real Pain wasn't there. You know what I mean? Or that Anora wasn't there. It's not one of those like, this is how Carey Mulligan got nominated for the BAFTA sort of situations. You know what I mean? It was a real race between those two. And I think that during the vote, the wave of Anora winning those guilds factors in huge. I think it's a top 2 contender for picture. I think it's a top 2 contender really pretty much in every category it's nominated for. And I think that they don't have the names again on the ballot there. And I do think that Anora is strong there. I think that there is Sean Baker's, when he has made speeches, has been extremely impactful, speaking specifically to everything that's going on in this industry, the future of this industry, the struggle for independent cinema. Jesse Eisenberg is also, though, he's been in the industry for a very long time. This is his second feature. Searchlight does an incredible job of campaigning themselves. I'm going to lean towards Anora for now because it is a picture frontrunner. I think also the fact that A Real Pain missed the Best Picture nomination for something like I'm Still Here, And it could just be a sort of like, Jesse Eisenberg won kind of like PTA at the BAFTA. Not to bring that up, Sophia, I'm sorry.
It's
But
okay. Painful things happen for me when Searchlight is involved, so
yeah,
it's fine.
but then I just kind of feel like the veteran, the person that is in the stronger film ended up winning, and they usually end up do. And I think that Honora's the stronger film. So I'm going to go with Sean Baker for Honora in this category as of now and just kind of play it safe about that logic. But if Eisenberg does win, I wouldn't be surprised either. I think it's very close between the two of them. But I'm going to stick with Sean Baker just for now.
Yeah. So, I mean, the last time that a non-Best Picture nominee won in this category was Eternal Sunshine,
Jesus.
uh,
We're talking 20 years ago?
2004. There's a reason why the screenplay winners here come from Best Picture nominated films. It's just so closely connected. I don't think a lot of people would argue that A Real Pain was probably 11th here. And that surge for I'm Still Here is the thing that replaced it. Um, but I'm going with Honora here. I get it. There's the actor turned director writer thing is going to be very appealing for some people. You know, uh, Billy Bob Thornton kind of sling blade kind of way. But that was a bigger film back then, and he was also nominated. Eisenberg is not, but he is the writer of a film that has a locked-in acting winner. Um, it's I think it's very close. I think it's very close, but if I'm looking at where I am at the end of this conversation, then Enora is my winner here.
For sure. Okay. So all three Honoras? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Conclaves and Honoras. Here we go. Best Supporting Actress. I'm going to just read them real quick, but I know we know who's winning. Monica Barbaro, A Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande, Wicked, Felicity Jones, The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, and our winner, which will be Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. She swept. She's going to survive the whole controversy and everything, as she should. Career win for her. Great performance. A lead performance. Best Supporting Actor. Yor Borisov, Honora, Kieran Culkin, A Real Pain, Edward Norton, A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce, The Brutalist, Jeremy Strong, The Apprentice. Kieran Culkin will be our winner. Swept everything. A good performance-ish.
This sounds like election night when you're calling when they are like
Call the states.
Steve Kornacki is calling a state when it has like 5% of
It's
the
like
returns,
Vermont
but you
going
just
blue.
know.
Yeah. hmm
He won every award this
Like
year.
we have 5% of California in, and it's obviously going to the Democrat.
And he's also a lead performance. So it's nice to see
Yeah.
that lead performances were awarded this year at the Oscars.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
gonna get four lead
Four of them.
performances.
Good job. And his is
Well
the worst
done.
one of the bunch. And the bracelets will be there, and it'll be a pretty smug acceptance speech. I've seen a lot. I will say this about the two of them. I've seen a lot of chatter since the SAG Awards, and obviously there's a ton of Emilia Perez hate out there. I think Saldana has given great speeches. They feel very much from the heart. Say what you want about that film, but she is the best thing I think about it in terms of the performances. And it's completely outside the box for her to do something like this because she's been in franchise, territory for years, and she'll literally be in another Avatar film this year. And Culkin, who's barely showed up for half the season, has swept through this season. No other challenger. I think a lot of people thought that might turn out to be the case, and are really obnoxious back-to-back winners with him and Robert Downey Jr. in terms of speeches and being little shits up on the stage. And so I can only imagine how insufferable that speech will be, as opposed to someone like Saldana, who feels very genuine, and that this comes from, I think, the heart from her. And so yeah, I don't know if you guys disagree or agree with any of that, but I feel like it's going to be a night and day in terms of their Oscar speeches, just like it has been throughout the season.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sophia?
I think
Yeah.
so. I
Okay.
I think so. I mean, they're sweepers. It's very funny. When I saw this movie, or when I a long time ago watched The Goodbye Girl, I
Mm,
thought, how did Richard Dreyfuss win? He was so annoying in that movie. Just so annoying. And this year I have my answer, and it's Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain. It's happening again.
yeah.
Sometimes you hate a character and don't understand it. And I don't do that with, I don't vote because I don't like a character, but I don't get it. And it's fine.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen anyway.
It will. Best actor,
Okay.
Eric Anderson. Please read the nominees.
We have Adrian Brody, Timothy Chalamet, Coleman Domingo, Ray Fiennes, and Sebastian Stan.
Yeah. Okay. So up to this point, Adrian Brody had won the Golden Globe. He had won Critics' Choice. He had won BAFTA. He had won the overwhelmingly amount of prizes from critics groups, right? He had been like the pretty much the dominator in those categories, Eric. And
Mm-hmm.
then last night, on the eve of 1 week from the Oscars, SAG went with Timothy Chalamet for A Complete Unknown. We kind of talked about the scenario that it could happen
Mm-hmm.
last week, considering the fact that A Complete Unknown did get 4 nominations in total from SAG. The Brutalist got 1 for Adrian Brody. Would that be enough for just Brody to sweep through the season, or would they want to award something for A Complete Unknown there? Unlike what they did with Wicked, which got 5 and then walked home, rightfully so, empty handed. So, A Complete Unknown does feel like we've thrown a little bit of a wrench in this, and it's between Brody and Chalamet, just like many have felt like this entire season. We'll also note that Conclave winning SAG did give Ray Fiennes an opportunity to make a speech. I'm not saying that he's going to win here, but if there was a third option, that would probably be it. But Eric, where are you leaning this morning post SAG? And who do you think will take home the trophy of Best Actor?
Well, I mean, SAG happened obviously a week after Oscar voting ended, so
Correct.
no one's speeches have any impact there. This was this is a funny win, but I think it speaks to the late strength that the film had, doing very well at multiple guilds, winning at some guilds in where the Brutalist won virtually none, has that one little SCL win, and that's it. So I think it's a great example of how timing can benefit one or two films. Not every film gets this. You have your Christmas Day release or, a limited release and then go wider in January. It's very risky to do that because it doesn't always pay off. Sometimes it does, and it's paying off pretty well for A Complete Unknown. Um, that being said, he only has SAG. Only 5 times ever has the SAG winner, the SAG only winner, won the Oscar, and it's never happened in Best Actor. It happened with Robin Williams for Good Will Hunting, Michael Caine for The Cider House Rules, Halle Berry for Monsters Ball, Morgan Freeman for Million Dollar Baby, and Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And if you look at each of those, you can see and break down exactly why they won. And Chalamet does not fall into any narrative of being a veteran, being in a Best Picture winner, being in a film that'll have other acting wins, um, or somebody with historical context. He's already the youngest winner in this category at Screen Actors Guild at 29. If he were to win, he would replace Adrian Brody as the youngest Oscar winner in this category. But I am not. I'm not feeling that Chalamet can pull it out at the end and that Adrian Brody will. But it's obviously a little closer than we would have thought because I think The Brutalists total haul is going to be very modest, but I don't think any film is actually going to win more than three. So it's going to be extremely spread out, but I don't think I can really pull the trigger on Chalamet, but I could be wrong.
Sophia?
I feel like Frances McDormand when she won her Three Billboards Oscar. I have some things I gotta say, so you go first.
Oh, so I've been sleeping on this because I think that I think this is tough.
Mhm.
Because of the group here, I have said for a while this season that I do think Chalamet is the second, or if not the winner of this category. It felt like a coronation right before your eyes, right? Like two films in Best Picture of the last couple of years. He has had 7 films nominated for Best Picture. He has worked with the top directors in modern cinema. He is a box office draw. He is coming off of a ginormous hit in Wonka. He is coming off of building a franchise with Dune, and he is coming off of letting people give a shit about going to see a movie about Bob Dylan, which is something that very few people have not been able to do. He is unequivocally the movie star of his generation. Nobody even comes close. There's not like a second that is like, oh, like within 100 yards of who he is. He is a massive following. He has campaigned his ass off to not for just the film, but he has pretty much been everywhere. Except some of these some of these award shows. Like he wasn't at Critics' Choice. He was at BAFTA because he was promoting the film internationally. He's really done, honestly, something that felt very much to the title of him being compared to at a young age of Leonardo DiCaprio. It's felt very much like that. And that being said, the path for him winning has been Critics' Choice and SAG by a lot of people because everyone thought that Adrian Brody would win the Globe, and a lot of people thought Adrian Brody would win BAFTA. Now, Critics' Choice really doesn't matter because that voting happened a long time ago. But for that upset win there at Critics' Choice, for a lot of people, it kind of then felt, okay, Adrian Brody's going to sweep this. And then in the last 24 hours, it's felt like people have lost their minds a little bit when it comes to saying, oh, Timmy's good. Oh, that means that, But to Eric's point, this speech happened after the voting. It's a pretty mixed speech for me. I don't. I understand him wanting to say that he wants to chase greatness. That felt very much like Matthew McConaughey in his Oscar speech more than it felt like anybody else. But I do also feel that not acknowledging the other nominees and his continuing to want to mirror Bob Dylan feels very Austin Butler-esque at times, and it is what it is. So I don't know. I don't know if this is also SAG saying that this is who we're overwhelmingly going for, or if it's a close race and SAG just went with him. I think Adrian Brody gives the performance of the male performance of the year. I think that the movie is very popular and has been popular at other places because you think of like, yes, a Complete Unknown has done a smattering of good wins or some wins and showing up for nominations. It blanked at BAFTA completely. It did not win a single Globe. It did not win, I believe, a single Critics' Choice Award on the Telecast Awards. So its real only giant win of the season was last night. So I go back and forth on if Brody, if it was just a blimp and on the screen, and then that just happened, and then poof, we go to because I think a lot about Lily Gladstone last year in Best Actress. She won the SAG, but she ultimately lost to a film that had more support, had more wins on the night, obviously, and won the BAFTA, won Globe, won Critics' Choice. And so I think in a very close race, as of now, I'm going to stick with Adrian Brody. But I still do have the feeling that Timothée Chalamet can win this Oscar. And either way, I think that it'll be a very interesting winner because you'll have Brody in his comeback, and you'll have then Chalamet and being the youngest winner of all time. And we have talked about that all season as potentially that if Chalamet were to beat somebody, he would beat the youngest Best Actor winner in history, and it would make a very interesting headline. I just think that Brody is in the stronger film, and I've said that most of today for my predictions, so I'm sticking with that as of now. He's in the stronger film across the board, and so I'm going to stick with Adrian Brody for The Brutalist.
Okay. Wow. I actually think that Timothy and I would really get along because we could just talk about only idolizing Daniel Day-Lewis for an hour. I feel like it would be just a really great hang between the two of us. We could go to all of his New York favorite spots, Tompkins Square Bagels, all of those places, and just talk about Daniel Day-Lewis and wanting to be great and ignoring everybody else around us. That would be very fun. Um, this is tough. I mean, the reason why I'm so torn is because of what I will call the Sophia curse. I'm going to make this about me for a second, and this has nothing to do with how people vote. They don't know who I am or anything like that. But there's a funny thing that happens, which is that the person that I want to win most falls at the 11th hour. Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza, Kate Blanchett for Tar, Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Adrian Brody for The Brutalist. Like, there's a really real chance that that could happen and that that's just the cross that I have to bear. And it's just my pain associated with the Oscars. There are a couple of interesting things here. I think that, with like Brody on paper gives the most best actor performance. That doesn't make sense, but he's doing the most in the role. Like, yes, Timmy can talk all he wants about training for 5 years and learning to play instruments and gaining 20 pounds. But what we see on the screen, the evidence for me in just the performance and the range of the performance and the emotional heft of the performance, that's all Brody. And I think he has a stronger narrative. I think it would be a big shame for Timmy to break his record because I think what he does in The Pianist is about 100 times better than what Chalamet does in A Complete Unknown. But again, my personal preference aside, where I'm stuck is that SAG, when voting happened for the Oscars, momentum was in Adrian Brody's favor. It was in his camp. And when we think about, sorry to bring up sports, but when we think about sports and you think about football teams or basketball teams, anyone who goes all the way to the end, there's sometimes this feeling that you get and you just think, okay, like the momentum is in their corner. Things can disrupt that, but the momentum was there when voting closed. However, SAG voting was at the same time. So if this is the result of that, what does that mean? I know the actors are the largest branch, but also Chalamet's mother has worked in Actors Equity for a very long time. They loved this movie. They love a biopic performance. They loved A Complete Unknown with all of its mentions. And we thought, if it were to happen somewhere, it would happen here. I have to own up, I guess, to the fact that the only reason I would be predicting Timothée Chalamet would be because I think they want to hurt me and not based on fact. So I have to go with Adrian Brody because the stats and the facts are there. But again, like I'm used to things being really painful. And this would be a Michael Caine and Cider House Rules level win for me if Timothée Chalamet won. I know that's being dramatic, but
Damn.
it would be doomsday for me. I don't like it, and that's okay. I know everyone else would be thrilled and happy. But again, I'm gonna stick with Brody just because I think the momentum was in his corner during voting. And one more thing, and then I'll stop. Here, The Brutalist maxed out on nominations, and it got in everywhere I think we thought it could.
Oh, at
And
Oscars. Oh, I thought you
at
were
Oscars, yeah.
okay.
At SAG, it was weak. And it makes sense for them to go for a complete unknown here. But here it's strong. And again, like you said, Ryan, I'm going to follow that logic and go with in close races, which film I think is stronger, and that's The Brutalist.
I feel everything you're saying there, Sophia. I mean, I almost thought about picking Chalamet, and I still might, just because I feel that momentum, that campaign was so loud. That's the difference, is
It was
that,
all about him, too.
yeah,
He
and
made it all about himself the whole
that's,
time.
but also that makes it then about the performance and him
Yeah.
and an individual win. It doesn't mean it has to make it about the film at all. But I also has felt that, like I said about Critics' Choice, the Brutalist didn't win anything at Critics' Choice, but somehow Adrian Brody still wins. And if that's a call and response, literally a copy paste from the Globes, so be it. But at the Globes, it overperformed. The Brutalist overperformed. At BAFTA, it performed very strongly there as well too. So when it has been overwhelmingly supported or at least nominated, the Brutalist has shown strength. And again, I think the reason why I'll stick with Brody and why we should all stick with Brody is Chalamet has one win. It's a big win. There's no question about that. But it is a win with a speech that was done when the voting didn't happen. The voting's already done. So, and also there could have been a backlash to the speech. There could have been a backlash to the arrogance. There has been online. There's people going back and forth. Not that it makes much of a difference, but it's part of articles that have been written already. He has a massive fan base that is also extremely toxic and could have taken it either way if we were in a normal year like last year or the year before when SAG happened and then the vote happened, or during the vote. But I think that we're gonna pick Brody. Well, we've all picked Brody for now. It'll be close-ish. But when Brody wins, if Brody wins, it'll make sense. If Chalamet wins, well, then SAG was a telling sign. But we'll see. Um, lot to still digest. Potentially articles and stuff could be changed. Erik, do you have something real quick?
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit more on the SAG win and what it means historically, because obviously we did, and in completely in the context of biopics, because biopics are really, really popular.
Yeah.
Um,
One won the category last year.
yeah, and Chadwick Boseman won SAG and then lost to somebody who had already won an Oscar in a stronger film.
Yeah.
Then you probably, I think you have to go back to like Russell Crowe for Beautiful Mind, winning SAG and then losing the Oscar. Just in the context of a biopic performance, because we do know how well those do. So I think there's room, but when you look at like those two examples specifically, uh, obviously things happened with Crow that clearly impacted voters' thoughts about him that night, despite him being in the Best Picture winner, on top of the idea of giving him two in a row. And then with Boseman and Viola Davis, really, that year, um, you can kind of see, you can read the tea leaves there. Chalamet does, I think, have an advantage of being uh, an actor who we've already talked about, multiple Best Picture nominees, massive box office star. It would be a way to anoint him in a way that just, would put him, he's already in kind of his own tier right now, and that would put him even higher up. But I don't know. It also depends on what you think the best actress race is going to shake out like, because I absolutely don't see a scenario in which it's Chalamet and Madison, two actors both under 30 winning lead. I don't think that is going to happen.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of
figure it out from there.
figure out what the equation is going to be, what the pairing is going to look like.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I am leaning Brody, but I can't dismiss the potential. But yeah, timing, voting is is a thing.
Yep.
Honestly, I'm surprised that Chalamet didn't win BAFTA and just kind of have a little bit of an Elvis thing. But at
Yeah,
this
I mean,
point,
why didn't he win BAFTA?
at
That's
this point,
the
Austin Butler was in a way better position than
He had
Chalamet.
won Globe and he had won BAFTA at this point.
Yeah.
I also think it'd be a different conversation if they would have run A Complete Unknown as a musical, like comedy musical at the Globes.
Yeah, but they can't really. They would have
Because of
said
precedent,
no.
other films from the
Oh,
past
well,
couple of years, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they changed that. So they
Well,
wouldn't have
yeah.
been able to.
there's a what if I would like to bring up in the next category that I would, well, we're going to talk about it now. Best Actress: Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez, Mikey Madison for Honora, Demi Moore for Substance, and Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here. It's always Best Actress, isn't it, folks? It's always the closest one. Um, let's talk about precursors going up. If I'm not mistaken, Erik, the critics winners have been Mikey Madison overwhelmingly, I believe,
Yeah, she's
followed by
she's
Demi Moore,
yeah.
right? The Golden Globe
Well, of the nominees,
of the
yes.
nominees, yes. Oh, yes, that's true. But then there's also been like Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who's not nominated
Hmm.
and fucking should be.
Won the trifecta.
Yes, exactly. Uh, Golden Globe drama went to Fernanda Torres. Comedy musical uh, went to Demi Moore. I still think that The Substance is a drama, and it would have been really interesting to see if they would have submitted there instead of comedy musical. That's the one I always wonder about, like, because I think if that would have happened, or Nora got pushed into, probably more so The Substance than Nora. If Torres and Moore had went up against each other at, or even Madison and Torres, if somebody else in this category had gone up against Torres at this point, we probably wouldn't be talking about Fernanda Torres nearly as much. Or if she would have won, we'd be talking about her a lot more. Critics' Choice went to Demi Moore for The Substance, as well as SAG. But BAFTA last week went for Mikey Madison for Honora. It's one of two wins that it won at the BAFTAs and won casting, and it won for Mikey. Notable fact as well too is that I believe still the BAFTA casting winner has not uh, also coincided with a SAG Ensemble winner, if I'm not mistaken, there too. Or if I have to, I look that up here in a second. But it's very rare that those have matched up. So that was probably a potential sign there.
Well, it's a very new
Also,
category though, too.
it's a very new category, yeah, for sure. But we're gonna have that category here next year at the Oscars, and that should be
Hmm.
very interesting with SAG Ensemble and the Oscar voting and the casting, if how that's going to look going forward. Okay, Sophia, you're going to kick us off. Best Actress. Where are you at right now?
This is really tough. This is a lot harder for me than actor because actor to me, I feel like I'm just hung up on it because I'm rooting for Adrian Brody to win. And here I like a lot of the nominees and I think I'm very stuck. But what I'm thinking about here is that I have two comparisons to Mikey's win at BAFTA that I've been thinking a lot about. The first is when Olivia Colman pulled out support there. Now, Demi Moore is not Glenn Close and the wife. Like, she's in a Best Picture nominee. The director is nominated. There's more support. There's the makeup win to go along with it. But Olivia Colman winning the BAFTA was also just a show of strength for her, yes, but also for the favorite at BAFTA. That ended up being the big winner. Honora didn't have that great of a day at BAFTA, so that means for me that Mikey's win there is actually really significant because they said, we're not giving this best film, we're not giving this best director, screenplay. Oh, instead, though, our favorite thing from Honora, the one place aside from casting where we want to give it a win, is for her. And that's an entire academy voting for her. And I think that the second comparison, and the stronger one for me, is Frances McDormand winning here for Nomadland, and that being really the only sign of strength for her outside of critics' prizes that season and being attached to the Best Picture winner. And spoilers for what I'm going to say later for my Best Picture prediction, but Mikey to me is in the stronger film. I think that Demi Moore and Mikey Madison are really tight, and you have the Fernanda Torres factor in here because they've never competed against her together in the same category. But I think, again, with the logic that I have to go with, Honora to me is a really strong film. And it didn't win ensemble at SAG. She didn't win at SAG, but this group is more, more than anyone else going to go with a narrative. And that's what Demi Moore has. And I think she has the Hollywood vote. She has, and that's very compelling and easy to go with. But I think I'm going to go with Mikey.
Right. Erik Anderson.
Oh, this is very hard. This is the hardest. Um,
Feel like we
I,
say this every year. It's the
yeah,
hardest. And it's
yeah,
getting harder
but
every year.
Hmm.
I mean, to introduce the Fernando Torres of it all, I think both Madison and Moore had to have lose SAG last night to be able to provide any real basis of uh, what we'll call a split vote, but not a split vote, but certainly show the cracks of of it being a race. But that didn't happen. Um, th this is tough because Demi Moore's SAG win is the saggest win possible. There was, I don't think, any realistic scenario that Madison would be able to win SAG over Moore. It fits into SAG voting structure in a way that, we have dozens of examples of. Um, but we have the makeup win and the makeup acting win that we have been able to rely on pretty consistently. Um, but something is kind of itching that if I think Honora's winning picture and director and screenplay, why wouldn't it win uh, for Madison unless it's a Shape of Water, Three Billboards, where it can lose for its lead. Um, that's very hard. This is one of those that we were talking about at the beginning that I don't think there's a lot you can really you'll be able to really rely on uh, as the exact reason for something or somebody winning. I think it remains so open and the paths are both there that then it just becomes really just passion will take over. Because as strong as Moore's narrative is, I don't think she would be able to win solely on that. You would still have to have passion. The film is obviously very strong, but Honora is stronger. Um, and it's the titular role. But I'm still not sure. Um, I think I think that more makes sense as the winner. I think my concern is there is a I think an imbalance of screen time from, say, comparing Madison to Moore in their films. That that hurts more a little bit, but not a lot. But I think it does a little bit. Um, it would be kind of semi-tragic for Moore to be able to earn all of these wins and get this close, uh, and then lose at the 11th hour to basically like the substance version of herself. It would be incredibly ironic and kind of bittersweet as a viewer for that to happen. Um, so I think I'm going to say that Moore is able to eke out the win, but I don't think it's uh, a long shot at all that Madison is not right there.
I want to go with Fernanda Torres really bad, just to go
Me
with her.
too.
I really do.
She'd be my vote.
She would, yeah. Well, she wouldn't be mine, but she'd be like number two for me. Um, I think it's real close. I think that going in on the night, probably the substance has a win that we know for sure. Honora doesn't, but we just know that it's the stronger film based off the guilds. We'll talk about the other two categories here in a second. The Mikey win at BAFTA baffles me because I didn't expect that to happen. Honestly, didn't expect more or Mikey to win there. I just expected them to go chaos and go somewhere completely different. I think about Sony Pictures Classics and how maybe Fernanda Torres hasn't been nominated, but she's been everywhere. She is literally was at BAFTA and she wasn't even fucking nominated. Like she was at every party. She was hanging out with everybody over the last couple of weeks. She was in Santa Barbara where everyone else was there as well too. She has been riding a wave. And I don't think it's enough to take the win, but maybe enough to take focus away from one's narrative for her own. And she has a similar narrative, not the same face, on paper, like copy to copy there as Demi Moore, but this actress, this that has been in the industry for a long time, that is giving this performance where she's getting her own celebratory time in the sun, and it got her the nomination. And sometimes that's just good enough, like just to get the nomination. That Best Picture nomination, though, really, really makes it a lot of interesting. I don't think Cynthia Erivo is going to win. She's going to perform at the Oscars. Congratulations to her. That fucking was never going to happen, and I'm glad it's
No,
not.
never.
And then Carla, who we just found out over the wires that she will be at the Oscars, and Netflix is paying for it, so we will see her. Kind of hope that we get her to do a tar moment and push the winner off the stage, or maybe push Zoe off the stage. We'll see. Who knows? Um,
It'll be Jacques Audiard if she
It'll be
pushes
Jacques Audiard.
anybody.
She'd be like, "Fuck you," you know what I mean, and just push him.
Bingo.
Bingo. Um, I, you know, I said this for a while, and Erik said it perfectly, and I'm going to repeat it, is that when Nomadland won, it just made sense that when that was winning for Francis to win in a tight race. And Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it was a tight race between Kate Blanchett and Michelle Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh, yes, had the narrative and everything. Kate had BAFTA, and SAG happened during the vote for the Oscars, but Michelle Yeoh was in the Best Picture winner. And last year, you could say that the passion was more there for Emma Stone and Poor Things than there were for Killers of the Flower Moon. And in the actor race, if you thought Oppenheimer was winning, it didn't make any sense why Cillian Murphy wouldn't have won that Oscar. And I still believe to this day that if Emilia Jones was nominated for Coda, she's probably going to win that Oscar too. Just because of the fact that, I believe that straight up. It won everything. I know that you guys, I know.
No.
Yeah, I think
my big fear was always like, every day I think about, not really, but just I'm exaggerating, how lucky we are that Sean Hayter wasn't nominated for Best
That's
Director.
the other thing. I kind of sit there. I'm like, it was just sweeping everything.
That would have been like Ron Howard beating Altman and David Lynch.
And them just looking in the audience like, what the fuck just happened? I kind of thought that Mikey would win SAG, honestly. I did. But then I started thinking about it, to Erik's point, and to yours, Sophia. Demi Moore's so Hollywood. It's so, she's got that in the bag. And so the international vote going to Anora, that movie being anointed from Cannes on, has been, we love this movie because it's from an American director, but it is an international film through and through as well too. They just have embraced Sean Baker, which American audience just haven't. And for BAFTA to go for her is kind of nuts. I'm going to go with Mikey. No, I'm not. Fuck it. I'm going with Demi Moore.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Demi Moore just because I think that the other thing, and Sophia has her lifeline to the Best Actress race. I have my entire family who have told me this whole season, I'm sure Mikey Madison is a nice girl, but Demi Moore is winning that Oscar in a landslide. And when my family, who are never attuned to this, is saying things like that, it kind of just makes you think to a certain age of voter, that they want to vote for her. And she's got this story. She's got her ugly dog. She's got this movie. I just think that she's going to win. And damn, if she's not even the best performance in her film, I would say that's Margaret Qualley. I think at times she does feel like a supporting performance. So maybe maybe we are getting a supporting performance win. And that screen time might hurt in the long run, but I don't know. Her speeches have been knocking them out of the park too. And her Globe speech was great. And that was the one I think that stuck a lot during the voting. So yeah, I'm just going with Mikey Madison. Let's go. Or I'm sorry, Demi Moore. I'm going with Demi.
Yeah.
And Mikey's my number 2, and Fernandez lurking there at 3. But if Fernando won, that would be wild.
To my dad yet. I'll have to ask what he thinks.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he'll pick Demi.
I'm sure.
It's not even a question.
It feels like, doesn't he have like a big crush?
Demi.
He loved Demi Moore.
Loves Demi.
So, all right. 2 Demi Moores and a Mikey Madison.
Yeah, there was I thought I had it written down, so I don't have it in full memory, but we're in a situation this year with BAFTA SAG splits.
Yeah.
And historically, when there is a BAFTA SAG split, Oscars will generally go with one of those pairings versus another version of that split. Like Frances McDormand and
Anthony Hopkins.
So it's usually the BAFTA winners will win, or the SAG winners will win.
Interesting.
It would be if there's a split here, it would be pretty unique.
But it's been a unique kind of year.
It certainly has
Yeah.
been. I think it's certainly an anything can happen year, and
Yeah.
that's happening in the top two categories too.
Yeah. Best director: Sean Baker, Honora, Brady Corbet, The Brutalist, James Mangold, The Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard, Amelia Perez, Coraline Farge for The Substance. Where are we going? Erik?
I'm going Baker.
Okay. Sophia?
I'm also going Baker. I
Okay.
feel like when I think about like whose moment it is, it just feels right here that it's him.
Mhm.
The BAFTA win for Corbet.
I
What do
know.
we think of that? Happened during the middle of the vote. Does it matter?
I don't think so.
Okay. Erik? No.
It doesn't matter as much as DGA, no.
Okay. I'm going Sean Baker as well. Feels like his time. And if you Erik and I were texting on Saturday because he was lucky to be at the Independent Spirit Awards. I caught up with only one speech, and that was Sean Baker's when he won director at Indie Spirits. Not that that's like an indicator of like, anything, the win, but Erik and I talking about how that speech is why I think he's going to win Best Director. Because while Brady Corbet, I think, was the best director of the year and had this monumental achievement on him, there's just a way in which Sean Baker is delivering the same message that Brady Corbet has tried to convey in a much more palatable, accessible, less combative way, and and he's just been. I mean, he's been around for a long time,
Hmm.
Sean Baker, for this to be his time in the sun. So yeah, that is who we think will win Best Director. And lastly, Best Picture: Honora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown,
That's it. We're
Conclave.
not doing any more conversation.
Well, I mean, did you guys want to mention anything else? We just picked
Yeah.
it. All right,
Yeah.
go
I mean,
ahead.
I think we should talk about why we think Baker is winning.
Because he's won DGA.
Yeah, but why did he win DGA? Why is he the director pick right now? His movie cost $6 million too. Same as Brady Corbett's. There's a huge difference between them. And it was absolutely bolded, underscored, highlighted, and italicized at the DGA Awards in
Hmm.
Leslie Linka Glatter's opening
Yeah.
keynote speech. Um, and there's I do really believe in my theory that the narrative of the Brutalist being super inexpensive uh, has backfired on it. And Baker's movie, which costs the same and is all on location.
No, it costs less because the Brutalist is 10
Yeah,
million.
but I mean, remember
You know?
the first numbers for the Brutalist was $6 million, and then it became 10 million.
Yeah. So how much?
Um,
How much is
and
it?
Honora's was 6 million. That was how
Yeah.
much it,
Yeah.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
cost to make. Um, yeah, I believe that there is a sense of kinship to a director shooting on location and shooting in the US. I do believe too that the fires and the timing of it all impacted people's thoughts about this enormously. Because I think, Corbet as a directing winner made so much sense all
Yeah.
season. Just the scope, this is a director movie.
Yeah.
And the fires happened, and people really circled the wagons for themselves in LA and making films on location. And as Glatter said, shooting films where they are set, and that like unlocked something in me that night. And clearly with the 19,000 director guild members too. So I think something was afoot. But yeah, the fires really it put a magnifying glass on Los Angeles and shooting in the United States.
I do also think too for Baker, that movie it's had the big word that we always talk about all season long. It's had passion from the festivals,
Mhm.
to winning the Palme d'Or, selling out screenings. Now, The Brutalist has had that too, but people, whether you want to believe it or not, people have completed Honora. You know, some people have said that they have not completed The Brutalist. Um, you know, the thing about Courbet's films is they're 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 not as accessible of a movie as weirdly as Honora. It's a very big piece that he's dealing with. I think both films are fantastic, but there's just something about, I think that night, Erik, at the DGA, seeing him in speeches, that run that night of PGA DGAs, someone told Kyle Buchanan, this is it. And I know that we've seen now the conclave surge and we had the Courbet win and things of that nature. But during the voting was when it was at its strongest. Sonora was at its strongest,
Hmm.
coming off of the PGA and DGA wins. And I think a lot of people are okay with that film. And that film is cool. As we saw at the PGA, will do well at the Oscars on a preferential ballot. And there are some movies that you can see it being all the way at number one, number two, and you can see it being all the way down at the bottom. And when you talk about a preferential ballot, Honora and Conclave feel like the ones where they most likely won't be out of people's top five, if not
Hmm.
top three. Not that it
Hmm.
has to go that significant rounds of votes, as we've talked about, but to be in that territory is good. It's very good for you. And there will be people that, because of the AI scandal, if you want to call it a scandal, will put The Brutalist low. Amelia Perez's and Carla's stuff will put it low. You know, other films in general, just because they don't want a movie like that to win, or were put off by it, like maybe like a Substance or a populist film like Wicked or A Complete Unknown or Doom Part Two, they'll put them lower, and that benefits movies like Honora and Conclave that have been in this race. And I mean, obviously, Edward Berger's not in this conversation at all, and never has been outside of DGA. But I don't
Well,
know.
no,
Also,
he got in everywhere except for
yeah,
Oscars.
but I think also too, like you saw when Baker won in the room at the DGA, there was this embrace and very happy room for him to win. And he's someone that, you know, a lot of filmmakers, you know, when I was watching, and I know this doesn't matter or anything, when you watch people's celebrities do the favorite fours for Letterbox on social medias, a lot of his films pop up and have popped up over the last couple of months, and I've been seeing that recently, especially with younger voters. And so he just feels like a director that it is a kind of throwback kind of directing win, because it isn't the big achievement that would be Courbet, but Baker feels like, yeah, it's as much as Mikey Madison is the titular role. Like, could you imagine anybody else making a Nora? No, and making it and kind of working for, to be his most mature work probably to date. I don't know, Sophia, thoughts on it?
My reasoning is really what I think I said after we talked about the DGA, which is just that if you compare the two of them and you have people in the industry who've been in the business for a really long time, Sean Baker has been working longer, he's gotten closer, and I can't see people, unless they love The Brutalist, like needing to reward Courbet here. And I don't know, I think as soon as I saw PGA and DGA both go to Enora, I thought, okay, I don't actually think this is a split year. I feel that if anything, the best place to reward him is here. It's not even in screenplay.
Hmm.
I do think
So,
he's stronger
yeah.
here than he is in
Hmm.
screenplay. That's for
I think
sure.
so too.
I think
And
he's going to win.
he is a cinephile at heart
Yes, he
Hmm.
is.
in the way that like Del Toro
In a
is,
way that's a
and
little more
they love that.
appealing in the
I
way
Yes.
that
mean,
he talks about it too, I
I
think.
mean, Sophia, we had the chance to talk to him at Telluride this past year,
Oh, yeah.
and we had a good 5 minute conversations about the various films and influences. And Sophia and I, we've seen some movies, folks. He was pulling out things. I was
When he
like,
and I both had the moment where we just drew the tear at the same time from Nights of Cabiria, that
mm-hmm.
was just a great, that's like one of those film festival moments I
Yeah.
won't forget.
But there were other films he was talking about. And I was just like, I don't even know what you're saying, but now I got to go
Hmm.
watch it. You know what I mean? And that's the other thing too
Yeah.
is he's been so close for his films in terms of getting praise or getting into the race or being around. Sometimes it's just your time, and I do think maybe a little bit of the rollout of The Brutalist taking as long as it did to get out into theaters, and then yes, to your point, Eric. I mean, like Sophia and I saw The Brutalist at the Vista, and right before the fires were going on, like it was,
Yeah.
and at this time, like when people are uncertain and they don't know where they're going to live. I don't think a 3.5 hour movie is in the cards for them at this point. And most people want to see that on the big screen, but don't have the time to do it. It's a commitment to see The Brutalist. Not that that's a bad thing. But it's also like, again, the best place to award that movie has been shown to be Adrian Brody, and maybe some of the technical awards. And I do think that the Corbet win at BAFTA, well, it was a good win for him. It was a bit of a surprise, but I just feel like Baker makes sense, and his speeches have just been incredible, and feels like his time. And if anything,
Well,
if the film doesn't win picture, it feels like a good place to reward that film. You know?
I think too, I think Baker has cross-pollination as a director, both in his love of American films in the 70s as well as European films in the 70s, because he utilizes both in Anora. He wears his influences on his sleeve, and he is a filmmaker making the kind of movies that he grew up with. And again, I just people really like that.
And they like
And
him.
you don't
Yeah.
have to be a completely hardcore cinephile to be like, oh wow, yeah, the scarf comes from Vampires Lesbos. That's so cool. You don't need to know that, but if you do know that, it's pretty cool. It doesn't matter. He makes films that you know exactly what it is,
Yeah.
and it puts you in a place, whether it is gritty 1970s New York, even though we're in the 2020s. It just he's he's a vibe director.
And they're also just, when he talked about it, Indie Spirits, he's an independent director. He makes these movies, they feel small. They feel very much, like they are scrapping everything together in a
That calling
time.
card film section of his speech was really something.
It was something. And it just kind of makes you, him just sort of talking about like, I don't want to make a movie to then make the 50 million or $100 million movie. I want to make these movies because I think that these are important. And I think there's a lot of directors right now. You talked about Corbet. Baker had comments about, the living wages as well too in his speech.
Hmm.
Like it's something that all those people in this room, when you watch them pan out to people, they were nodding along, they were listening, they were cheering. He's someone that has been in the fight for longer than someone like Brady Corbet. And, I, again, don't think ODR's going to win because that film is that's not going to happen. You know, Farge and Mangold, no, it's really down to these two. And sometimes also you just go with the person that's with the stronger film again. And, um, he's weirdly kind of the veteran, even though he had never gotten Oscar noms before.
Hmm.
Um, I think I said it to you guys both when we saw it before we saw it at Telluride. I needed to see this film in order to believe it can be an awards contender. because Sean Baker's films really hadn't been outside of Willem Dafoe. And then I saw it. I think it's
Yeah.
one of the best films of the year. And I think it has that little underdogness ability to it as well. It packs a punch. You can't stop talking about it. It's got the passion. You wrap that all up. He's our best director winner. So now best picture.
All
Anora,
right.
The Brutalist, Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here. This Is How Nickel Boys Can Win, The Substance, and Wicked. I saw a lot of that online this week. Where have we been at? Okay. Well, Amelia Perez won Golden Globe, musical or comedy. That feels like an eternity ago. The Brutalist won drama. Critics' Choice went to Anora. The PGA went to Anora. SAG Ensemble, which is their version of Best Picture essentially, went to Conclave, and BAFTA Best Picture went to Conclave. The SAG Ensemble win obviously is outside of the voting window. The BAFTA win was last week with like 2 days to go left in there. The PGA vote as well as the Critics' Choice came right as the voting was starting. And the PGA is a preferential ballot win for Anora, which is bigger than any of the other wins that we just mentioned because that is the system in which the Oscars vote for Best Picture. So with that in mind, Sophia Ciminello, I'm going to ask you on Sunday night, what will be our Best Picture winner?
I think Anora will be our best picture winner. I'm going with the PGA, preferential ballots. I think that is our best indicator. And it isn't the only place that we've seen support for the film. I think that with everything that Conclave has achieved, it is odd to give it adapted screenplay and editing and not best picture, but I do just bank on Anora being a little bit stronger and benefiting from the preferential ballot, which we have evidence of. And I have it getting the Annie Hall collection, picture, director, original screenplay, and actress for It's Annie.
For It's Annie.
And I just feel like that's a good showing for it. And I know that Conclave has ensemble, but I just don't sense the same sort of passion for it that I do Anora from the industry. And if I'm giving it director, and I don't know, there are a couple of key places too that Conclave missed with nominations. And Anora has just been this kind of, like you were saying, Erik, last time, it's the frontrunner and underdog at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can also say, like, that's a weird Best Picture winner. That doesn't totally make a lot of sense, but a lot of the recent Best Picture winners haven't made a lot of sense. We have some examples of those that feel like outliers and don't feel traditional. So yeah, I think it's a non-traditional winner, but I think that's just the way the Academy is going.
Erik?
So we have a PGA DGA versus SAG BAFTA split, which is really uncommon. The three times that it's happened, Best Picture has gone with the PGA DGA winner twice and with the SAG BAFTA winner once. Uh, and only one of those times exists in the current era of the preferential ballot because when it happened before, it was Titanic uh, and Shakespeare in Love uh, over Saving Private Ryan.
Titanic was
Those,
over the Full Monty.
yeah,
Still a great win.
and so those exist just in a different space and time when it comes to BAFTA. But the example that we have, and we've already even brought it up, is The Shape of Water versus Three Billboards. Three Billboards was the SAG BAFTA winner and won two acting Oscars, but still lost to The Shape of Water. Three Billboards was director snubbed. Conclave is director snubbed. Conclave isn't even nearly as strong as Three Billboards because it's not winning any acting award. It's going to win screenplay. Maybe it'll win editing. And I think for a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, that's enough. I can give it picture, editing, and adapted screenplay. That's enough. It can happen. There's a path." And technically, yes, there is a path. But if Conclave was going to be the consensus choice this season, then it would have been the consensus choice, but it's not. So Anora's winning.
So we said last week at BAFTA that I didn't really feel like the needle had moved too much because, to your point, Erik, no film won more than four, and now four was The Brutalist. The Brutalist had a stronger day than well, I guess Conclave won four. But one of its wins is an award that doesn't coalesce with the Oscars, so technically three that mattered, right? And its wins were the path that a more traditional Oscars would have. I would say in the 2000s, like a picture, screenplay, editor win. And so then I was like, okay, well, it's not going to win for Fiennes. It's not going to win for Isabella Rossellini. And
Yeah.
we never saw a supporting actor nomination happen this year. That's a big miss for it that Sophia was mentioning. The Berger miss as well. The cinematography miss. Those were nominations that we all kind of thought might happen. Or even a production design win at any point this season would have shown some sign of strength for it. And it just didn't occur. But man, it winning SAG Ensemble, even though we kind of knew that was going to happen, I think a lot of us kind of got scared and shouldn't have listened to others about Wicked because that wasn't going to really happen. And thank God it didn't. Can't go back, can't just go by how loud a table is, at these certain places.
I need a dig count for you on Wicked.
I'm just saying, like, I'm glad
take a drink.
Well, no one mourns the Wicked except me. I'm more celebratory that Wicked's dead. And it's going to be worse next year for it too, when some real movies are against it. But I think this is tough. I think it is close. Because if Anora had become that consensus after the PGA, I mean, it could have won BAFTA. It has international support.
Mm-hmm.
It could have won SAG Ensemble. It was on the table.
Mm-hmm.
It could have won Mikey at SAG. That's on the table. So I do think that Conclave is very close. It's the movie that Erik predicted at the beginning of the season. It's a movie that, has done well enough to get to this point. And Anora does feel like the winner, but it also feels like a very, it doesn't feel like a strong number one. It's soft. And I think that in the preferential ballot, both of these films are going to do really well. And as of right now, of these nominees, while I do think Baker's going to win director and screenplay, I don't think they're locked. I think that they're close, but Conclave has a walk win going in on the night. And that's in a category that matters, which is adapted screenplay. Mm-hmm. That's locked it in.
Mm-hmm.
So as of right now, I think Conclave is going to win Best Picture. And I think that we had, like you said, Erik, we had two in the past. One went one way and the other went the other way, right? In terms of the DGA PGA split and the then SAG and BAFTA winner split.
Sure, but when that happened, I am,
I know.
Shakespeare in Love versus Saving Private Ryan, Spielberg won director.
Yeah, and I have Sean Baker winning director and Conclave winning Best Picture. That's a
So
split.
so Conclave is your Shakespeare in Love, and Baker is your Honora is your Saving Private Ryan
In that
in
scenario,
this
yes.
scenario.
In that scenario, yes.
That's messy.
It is very messy. This year
Best
has been
best of
messy.
luck.
I have that right now. I just, if I'm picking Demi and I, what if a real pain, which does have a very strong possibility of winning, screenplay wins, director and picture is not enough. I don't think it's
I
enough
want them to hold off on doing the screenplays
to
until
last.
like way at the end of the night
Do screenplay and
because
actress back to back. You know what I mean?
if it's at the beginning and a real pain, beats Sonora, then I think, we're gonna have this like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
I am almost tempted to. I just have a feeling that even with the preferential win, we saw something like 1917 win the preferential ballot as well. And then Parasite came and won SAG. And I know that they're totally different films and totally different support systems for those films. But we've seen sort of when it is vulnerable or tight, that PGA is not always the thing that you have to have. And I just feel like some of the tea leaves that we saw from BAFTA and from now SAG suggest that Conclave does have got that boost of support. Maybe it's just that boost of support for those two categories. Maybe BAFTA sort of like nullifies itself because of the brutalist love there as well, because Conclave wasn't overwhelmingly loved. I mean, it wasn't an All Quiet on the Western Front situation where they basically dominated. And the only thing Conclave won, it didn't win Ray Fiennes or Isabella Rossellini, it just won Ensemble, which is the thing that it's been winning with every critics group and
Mm-hmm.
at Critics' Choice
Yep.
as a sort of a default win for it. And it's not going to have that on the night, but I don't know. It's going to do really well in the preferential ballot, I do think. And I think it's a close race.
But I mean, that's why I don't think that it really has a chance because its only wins have been
Yeah, and
in
plurality. Yeah.
in adapted screenplay and ensembles.
Yeah.
So it has
I know.
no bona fides to be able to really do that in a way that all of those other examples have.
I know. But then I'm also,
And this isn't Coda. This isn't like all
I
of a
know.
sudden the second, phase of Oscar voting turned into this love fest for the cast in
Yeah.
the same way.
I'm
Hmm.
also doing something that I always do. And I saved it for Best Picture, which is I'm not picking my favorites. I'm picking against my favorites here as well, too. I don't want Conclave to win. Go check out my review. It's not a glowing one. All right. I would love to see a Nora win or the Brutalists, something else, or Nickel Boys. That's definitely not happening. But Conclave, I'm picking that because Sophia knows this. Talk about a sports reference. When March Madness happens,
Oh my God.
Sophia knows that I never pick my team to win. I always pick against them because sometimes when you pick your team, they can hurt you if they also lose. So if you don't pick them to win, well, at least my predictions get upended by something that I love rather than not. And if I get the prediction right, well, then there you go. So it's a win-win. And that's maybe also being safe. But you know what? I've been kind of safe today. And I think that that's okay. And I think if you pick either Conclave or Honora, I think you're doing the right thing. Because if you pick anything else other than those two, you're morons.
Well, yes.
Putting a complete unknown anywhere in your top five. Stop it. Stop putting Wicked. Stop putting things you want.
I've
I can't wait
had
to never talk about a complete unknown ever
Oh
again.
my God. I've had Honora and Conclave in my top three since the first predictions back
Yeah.
last summer.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty good about that, no matter how it ends up shaking out. But
Eric,
yeah, it's what?
if it is Conclave,
Yeah.
what would that then say? Because we kind of know
It
Honora.
would be really unprecedented,
It would
but
be.
that's fine. We have plenty of unprecedented things happen all the time.
Hmm.
But it really would be, and it would you kind of have to ask, obviously, why wasn't it able to win other places that it
Hmm.
really could have? Not even Globes. Why not PGA? If it's a film that is very clearly representative of elections and the turmoil around them, which we are now in the aftermath of ourselves. I mean, that to me was why it was, early on an easy pick. Like, oh, this is going to be able to be the socio-political movie without being the kind that needs to I don't know, I guess really overstate itself, even though it does. I mean, there's like direct lines in this that get so many laughs because it speaks directly to US elections. Um, but if it were to win, is that the reason that it's going to win? And why didn't it before? There's too many things, and that's what Monday is for.
And yep.
Monday is going to be for looking back and going, okay, this makes sense. This doesn't. What does it mean for the future? What does it mean for this year?
Yeah. Sophia, I want to ask you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about Honora and we've talked about Conclave. Is there realistically, as wide open a year as this is there realistically a third film to be looking out for on Oscar night to win Best Picture?
No, there is
Okay.
not. If we have the SAG, a SAG ensemble winner and a BAFTA film winner and PGA, DGA,
PGA. Yeah.
I'm not I'm
Okay.
not touching the Golden Globes.
Okay. All
As
right.
much as I would love to vote for The Brutalist, that's
Yeah.
not happening.
It had just as strong a vote showing at BAFTAs. Now, I didn't
Hmm.
win the top prize, but winning
But it didn't win film, right?
director, actor, cinematography, score.
Hmm.
That's a pretty nice day for it there,
Hmm.
and clearly supported by the international voting body through and throughout. So
So do each of us have no movie winning more than three? Because I feel like that is
I have
where we're
Honora
at.
winning four
So you do have it winning
she
four.
has it
Okay,
winning
because of
for,
Mikey. That's right. That's right.
yeah.
for
I
now. We'll see how long that lasts.
For now, I
It's
mean,
the only one that can, I
it really,
think.
yeah. I mean, Honora's not going to, well, The Brutalist, because The Brutalist could take its BAFTA wins if it upsets Baker in director,
Hmm. I have it at three.
Actor, score, cinematography.
cinematography, director.
Hmm.
And there's
I'm
let's even think about that. Maria beating the Brutalist at ASC.
stupid. Doesn't make any
Crazy.
sense. You know what I mean? I mean, it does from the standpoint of
Why do
like
guilds not like the Brutalist? What is happening there?
they not
It's
get
so
enough
Crazy.
to
critical of
nominate.
America.
I
I think the thing about The Brutalist is that it is a movie that is very against the studios. And I think that it is a movie that, yes, A24 picked it up and everything. They scrapped together to make this. And again, Brady Corbet is a guy that has talked. He talked about it in my interview with him. That's up on the site. He's talked about this in pretty much every Q&A about how this is an anti almost studio, how the studio movie and that the studios are essentially the Van Buren characters. Like and
yes.
and that is while it is a fascinating thing to dissect and pull apart, and it is also a giant like middle finger to the people that are trying to give them awards for better and worse to everybody else that's also making the film. Now, it doesn't also mean that they some voting bodies haven't loved it and have given it awards, but the guilds themselves have gone with either these career narratives or they have gone with some of their favorites, and these are mostly first-time nominees to outsiders. And there is maybe potentially a little bit of like you got to earn your dues that come with stuff like this as well too. So there's a ton of little factors that then add up to being just a factor. And and it doesn't mean though I don't think it's going to walk away empty-handed. We've predicted it to get some awards here. Most of us have it predicted to get at least 2 to 3, potentially even 4. And I don't know. It's also going to be very interesting about this vote, to go back to Erik, your conversation about the fires, where the fires ultimately play with this. Did the American vote get out there in time with the delays? What was the overall sentiment? Or did the BAFTA vote, which is a strong vote and has shown 2 out of the last 2 out of the last 4 years in 2020 and 23 to just be like a copy and paste of those awards. So it'll be very interesting to see. I don't know if I'm going to keep the Conclave one for now. It's just kind of how I feel. But Sophia's point about the Anora 4 and the Annie to Annie comparison, that kind of does sound dead on and right there too. So we'll see.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even feel great about predicting Mikey, so we'll see how long that lasts.
That's the other thing is that then there's Demi and everything. There's so much, but then on Oscar night we will record our final episode. Then we'll be off for a whole week, and we won't touch these awards for another probably 5 years until we do the Awards Watch retrospective on this and can change some stuff. But that's going to do it for our predictions, our final predictions. They might change on the site, or Sophia and I might just change them on social media. So, Sophia, can you tell everyone and where they can find you and all your work, and potentially where they could see any last second changes that you make?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Sophia_Sim and Sophia Sim. You can find my Letterboxd at Faye Dunaway with opinions on all of these movies. You can find updated Oscar predictions for me on my podcast website, oscarwild.squarespace.com. I will have updated winter predictions there. I'll probably do my final set Friday, I think. I don't think I'll go beyond that. I try not to touch them. Definitely not day of. But you can find those there. And you can listen to my podcast wherever you listen to pods. And you can find reviews, interviews, and more podcasts at Awards Watch. And I hope that these don't disappoint me.
Erik?
Yes, you can find me at awardswatch.com. My final written published predictions just started today and will be out all week leading up to the Oscars next Sunday.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, Ryan McQuade 77. If you like podcasts, we have the Director Watch podcast that releases on Thursday. And that this week's episode is for The Birdcage with our own Erik Anderson. What a fun, chaotic episode that is. I can't wait for everybody to listen to that. 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify. Greatly appreciate it. While you're over on the website, please sign up for the newsletter. It's the great place to get all of our news, reviews, predictions, and podcasts all sent to you in one place. Next week, we will be back wrapping all this up post the Oscars that night to talk about what the fuck won and what it means and how the season's over. And thank God it'll be over. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.